Hi, and welcome to TalkingPurpose.com. I am your host, Michelle Vandepas, and today I'm very pleased to have Susan Shumsky with us. You can find her at drsusan.org. And Susan has written a number of books, but today we're here to talk about her book, Ascension. And, well, let's start by welcoming you, Susan. Hi, welcome to the show, Talking Purpose.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Now, you've written a number of books. Your latest is Ascension, and I notice in your book that you really talk about getting messages directly from God and that you've been getting those since you were a small child. Tell me how that works.
Right. What I teach is I help people to listen to the still small voice of God within, which is that divine voice, the voice of divine intuition. And in fact, I haven't been doing that since I was a child. I learned how to do that through 40 years of spiritual practice.
Okay. And so you're talking about the voice within is really our own intuition. So when you're calling it God, it's not really God out there. It's more our own selves, our intuitive selves.
God is everywhere present. God is everywhere present. Every scripture in the world tells us that God is present everywhere. God is omnipotent, omniscient, and God is here also. If God is everywhere, and if you are somewhere, then you must be where God is, right?
Okay, so that voice of intuition, how can we learn to differentiate when it's ourselves talking, it's our own, maybe it's the ego, or maybe it's an intuitive hit, but it's separate from God?
That's a really, really great question you just asked, Michelle, because we need to learn how to tell the difference between that true voice of spirit and other voices in our mind, how to tell whether the message is the real thing. Because we might be getting our messages from the spiritual world, the mental world, the astral world, or the environment. And it's really important that we learn how to get our messages only from the spiritual world. And that's what I help people to do. I help them to learn how to listen to that true divine voice and to not listen to other voices. So the voice within, that truly is the voice of God which speaks to us. It's not just our mind. It's not on the mental level, because people might be deluded. They might think that something or someone is speaking to them from a higher plane, but in fact, they're just talking to themselves.
Okay, so is that a bad thing? I mean, there's all this information out there about self-talk and giving ourselves positive messages and affirmations and thinking what we want and believing about what we want. So is talking to ourselves a bad thing?
No, actually, affirmations and prayer, that's another thing that I teach, is to help people to focus their mind in a way that they learn how to receive divine messages and also how to set their goals and realize their goals through affirmation and prayer. And I have books about that also. But it's really important that we learn how to hear that divine voice so that we can receive inner guidance, so that we can be led by spirit in everyday life.
Now, when we're talking about spirit, are you talking about our higher selves? Is that myself that's going to be guiding me in my everyday life? Or is that...
Right, it's your higher self. Your higher self is the aspect of yourself that is one with God. It is the aspect of yourself that is the true self. And that true self has a connection to God, direct connection to God, and that divine self will guide you in the right direction. It will guide you to your highest purpose. It will guide you to that which you came on earth to do. So when you're in touch with that divine self, then your life takes on great meaning. Your life is filled with miracles. Your life is guided in the proper direction. So it's a powerful, powerful connection to be able to hear that divine voice and to receive the divine messages clearly.
One of the things that's always intrigued me about this kind of work is what level guidance would I expect? Because I hear some people say that they don't do anything like eat a meal without checking in first, and other people say, oh no, I'm only interested in the really big picture, or my daily practice. So what level of guidance should somebody expect in their day-to-day life?
Well, you can ask God about anything. I mean, you can receive guidance about every little minuscule thing in your life. But most people use this to ask important questions and to receive answers to everyday problems and concerns. And that's how I recommend that you use this method, is to ask specific questions about problems in your life. Maybe you're having a problem at work or at home or with your children or with your parents or your boss or whatever. And you can ask questions about that and then receive direct answers and guidance from God within you. And it's such a powerful thing to be able to do that. It's so amazing to be able to hear that divine voice and receive the divine guidance. It's really quite amazing. I mean, I don't even know how to describe how amazing it is, because I spent so much of my life feeling lonely, feeling that I didn't fit in or whatever. And then when I was able to open to that divine voice, when I was able to have that divine experience whenever I wanted to, at will, completely changed my life. I was never alone again. And that's really an amazing connection to have, to never be alone. So anyone could do this. It's not just for special people, for priests and saints and divine, great holy beings. It's for everyone.
What's the difference between what you're talking about and prayer?
Okay, that's a really good question, because listening to the divine voice, or receiving divine revelation, as I call it, is hearing the voice, it's receiving the divine guidance. Nothing program. That means you do nothing, and less than nothing. And then that divine voice will speak to you within your mind. Prayer is completely different. Prayer is where you're asking for specific goals that you want to achieve. Prayer and affirmation is where you are stating or asking for what it is you want to, for a condition that you want to change in your life. For example, maybe you have a problem in your life and you want to overcome that problem, or you want to heal a relationship, or you want to manifest something in your life, like a job. So you'll do affirmations and prayers to help you to fulfill that goal. Now, receiving divine messages, that's different. That's what I call divine revelation. And through divine revelation, you hear the divine voice and it gives you guidance. It will give you advice. So if you're having a problem, for example, you can ask the still small voice within you and you'll receive the answer to your question. You'll receive healing, you'll receive inspiration, you'll receive creative solutions to your problems, and then you can use that guidance to make decisions with peaceful confidence.
You talked earlier about how we can use this to help us really live our purpose on life. Do you think each of us has an individual purpose? I mean, some people say, the purpose is to come into love your neighbor. Other people say it's to know yourself. Do you think we all have an individual purpose and an individual path? Or is it that we just need more guidance on how to better love and know ourselves?
That's a really great question. The fact is that we all have one purpose, and that is to realize who we really are. But each individual also has a very special purpose, because we're all unique and individual. And we're not thrown upon this earth arbitrarily. Every one of us is a mighty, powerful, divine, spiritual being, and we have something to do. We have a purpose to fulfill. We have a mission. So every one of us can learn how to fulfill that mission by listening to the still small voice within, finding out what that mission is, and then having the courage and strength to move forward to fulfill that mission.
What kind of missions are there? Are there like 5 missions?
For example, some people that...
Yeah, go ahead.
For example, some people might have the mission to be a piano player, to be a composer, to be a mother, and nurture the young. Some people might have a mission to be a teacher or to be a scientist. I mean, everyone has a specific mission to fulfill. Some people might work in charity. Some people might help the environment, environmental issues. Whatever it is, we all have a specific mission to accomplish here that we chose before we ever came onto this earth.
It seems to me like to be a piano player or to be a mom, those are choices. Though to me it feels like those aren't like life missions that God really cares about. But you're saying no, we make a decision before we come, like to be a piano player? Or what if I don't learn piano? Are you saying that I'll have failed at my life purpose?
You have to understand that God is not just out there on a cloud sitting somewhere. God is within us. God is within every particle of our being, and God is guiding us in each and every moment. The important thing is for us to begin to listen, to pay attention to what God is telling us. And everything that we do in our life is important to God. So, for example, if we have a specific mission to fulfill, God will help us to fulfill that mission by giving us specific guidance to move us in the proper direction to fulfill that mission. And if we have a heart's desire, actually, our mission, our purpose is exactly the same as our heart's desire, our deepest, most heartfelt desire. So that deepest desire might be to be a mom or to be a piano player, for example. And when we fulfill that mission, we feel so fulfilled. We feel bliss. So it's like following your bliss, as Joseph Campbell might say. You're following your true heart's desire. And when you do that, you are in tune or in touch with what God wants for you. And you fulfill your life.
What happens when, because I've talked about this a lot, and my audience knows that I'm always saying, being a mommy is not your purpose. So I just want to talk about this for a minute, because what happens when your kids grow up? Do you get a new heart's desire? Do you have a different mission? How, in your view, how does that change and evolve?
Right, well, we don't just have one mission or one purpose. We have several things. We might have a list of a few things that we really want to accomplish in our lives. And when you were a child, you had a dream. Everyone has a dream as a child, something that they wanted to do in their life, a heartfelt mission. And for me, for example, when I was a child, I always felt that I wanted to help to bring world peace. That happened to be what I always dreamt about or thought about as a child. So that little spark of inspiration that we have as a child, that will give you some clue as to what your true desire is, your true purpose. Now, another way you could discover your true purpose, and this really works actually, is to imagine what you would do in your life if you had unlimited time, unlimited money, unlimited help, unlimited education, and unlimited health. If you had no limits in your life, then what would you do with your time? What would you do every day in your life? And if you just make a list of the things that you would do in that situation, then you would have a big clue as to what your true purpose is.
All right, and sometimes, as I know, it does take lists and lists and lists till you can get deep enough to really excavate what's underneath that. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to put that out there as a challenge to our audience to go ahead and make those lists, even if you have to make several lists and keep digging in there. Susan, in our last few moments, will you give us a couple of tips, something that I could do, or a couple of things that mention in your book? And I will put a link to your book, by the way, after this interview on my website and so forth, so people watching know they can go to drsusan.org, but also where they can get the book on Amazon. But my question is, give us a couple of tips on how I can start tapping into that intuitive self to get guidance for my day.
Well, actually, the biggest secret, there's only one secret to doing that, and that is to sit down in a chair, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, get quiet and still and centered and balanced within yourself, and then to simply ask. The whole secret is to ask. In fact, the entire premise of divine revelation is one thing, and that is ask and it shall be given unto you. So it is by asking that you receive the answer to your question. It's by asking that you receive the guidance, that you receive the inspiration. So ask and it is given. That is really the complete method of receiving divine revelation. Now, the things we've been talking about today are mostly taught in my books, Divine Revelation and How to Hear the Voice of God. My new book, which is called Ascension, which has just come out, Ascension.
Got a copy there, great.
Ascension is is about the divine beings and immortal masters that you can contact when you open to that still small voice of God within.
Susan, I know that you're traveling. You're calling us from your motorhome today, and I really appreciate you spending time to come on Talking Purpose. I'm going to put links up to your site so people can contact you directly. It's a really interesting book. I have read it, and I encourage people to go on over to Amazon, and I think it is available February 12th?
February 3rd.
3rd, excuse me. So I'll make sure that this interview's up before February 3rd, and I appreciate you coming. Thank you so much, Susan.
It's my great joy.
This is your host, Michelle Vandepas from Talking Purpose. I'd like to remind you to come on over to talkingpurpose.com and look at the many video and listen to the many audio podcasts that are archived over on Talking Purpose.